Hello, Jacksonites, and welcome to take two of my A Quiet Place review. I would have my disc on hand, but my movie area is filled with junk, so just not available at the moment. Um, yes, indeed, 2018's A Quiet Place. I am reviewing today a movie that, despite many people knowing perfectly well that generally when a movie receives a lot of praise, I tend to disagree. And if a movie gets a shit ton of hate, I also tend to disagree, which is why I'm really kind of dreading reviewing the anime Godzilla movies. Um, but there also comes a time where a movie comes along that receives a lot of praise that I agree with. And this movie is one of those times. A Quiet Place is a post apocalyptic sci fi horror film directed by John Krasinski, who also wrote the screenplay along with Brian Woods and Scott Beck. It stars Krasinski as the main character alongside Emily Blunt, who is his real life wife, Millicent Simmons, and Noah Jupe. The plot revolves around a family who is facing struggles in a post apocalyptic world inhabited by blind monsters with an acute sense of hearing. Uh, it premiered March 9th, 2018. Oh, wait, no. It was released worldwide April 6th, 2018 by Paramount, and it became a giant box office hit, grossing over $340 million worldwide on a $17 to $21 million budget. Excuse me. And received acclaim from critics who praised its originality, its atmosphere, its acting, direction, and sound design, it being known as a smart, wickedly frightening good time. And of course, a sequel is scheduled to be released May 15th, 2020, which I am so fucking excited to see. So, allow me to share a little bit of personal history, even though this movie is fairly recent, but still. I have to say, A Quiet Place it was one of my most pleasant movie theater experiences of 2018. One of. It's beaten out by two others, that being Halloween and Venom, especially. Well, I don't know. Both are pretty enjoyable. Um, but I went to go see A Quiet Place. Well, hang on. I saw the trailer the day that it debuted. I saw it on Facebook of all places, and I watched the trailer because I saw the title and I figured this has got to be a horror movie. So for shits and giggles, I checked it out, and when it was over, I immediately said, "Okay, I got to see this." So I eagerly awaited to seeing it in theaters, and I had every intention of seeing it in theaters. So as an early birthday present, my friend Nate took me to go see it because my birthday was in April, and I went to go see it, and I was not disappointed. I thought this movie is absolutely fantastic, or I think this movie is absolutely fantastic, and it's easily one of the best movies of 2018. And again, I cannot fucking wait for the sequel. Um, this movie deserves every amount of praise that it gets. It is truly a great film, even though I do have some issues with it, which I will take note of when I get to the cons section of this review. A Quiet Place, I really do think is one of the best movies of the past 10 years or so. And I hope that we can get at least a 3 to 4 movie long franchise out of this. Here's to hoping. So, with all that being said, let's get to the review. Or not review, the plot. 89 days into 2020, most of Earth's human and animal populations have been wiped out by sightless creatures of unknown origin. The film never specifically states what the creatures are, if they're earthbound monsters that have just been awoken after millions of years, or they're aliens. I kind of tend to think that they're aliens, but the movie kind of presents it as you can take it either way. And these creatures attack anything that makes noise due to them having hypersensitive hearing as well as indestructible armored skin. The Abbott family, consisting of wife Evelyn, husband Lee, deaf daughter Reagan, and sons Marcus and Bo, silently scavenge for supplies in a deserted town. While out in the open, the family communicates with American Sign Language, and 4-year-old Bo is drawn to a battery-powered space shuttle toy. However, Lee takes it away due to the noise it would make. Reagan returns the toy to Bo, who also takes the batteries that his father removed from it, like a dumbass. Bo activates this toy when the family is walking home and crossing a bridge, which gives away his location to a nearby monster, which ends up killing him before Lee can save him, which is it's certainly a jarring opening, and it's a very ballsy opening, especially in today's society. Over a year later, Reagan continues to struggle with guilt over her brother's death, and Evelyn enters the final stages of pregnancy. Lee fruitlessly tries to make radio contact with the outside world, and he also attempts to upgrade Reagan's cochlear implant with scavenged miniature amplifiers to restore her hearing. However, all of these devices prove to be ineffective. Later, Lee takes Marcus to a nearby river, which has a large waterfall, to teach him to fish, while Reagan visits Bo's memorial. Lee explains to Marcus that they are safe from the creatures in the presence of louder noises, as the sounds mask over their voices. Marcus then reveals that Reagan does blame herself for Bo's death, and she needs her father to tell her that he still loves her. As Lee and Marcus head home from the river, there it is. Damn. They encounter an old man who is standing over the corpse of an old woman who is presumably his wife, who has been completely eviscerated. Lee motions for the man to be silent. However, the man screams, which attracts a monster. Lee picks up Marcus and runs as the creature attacks the old man, which ends up killing him. Alone at the house, Evelyn goes into labor earlier than expected, and while making her way into a basement, she steps on an exposed nail through her heel. In pain, she accidentally drops a glass picture frame and alerts a nearby monster to her presence. Evelyn flips a switch that changes the exterior house lights to red as a danger signal to the others, and struggles to remain silent during the rest of her contractions. Excuse me. Arriving at the farm and seeing the red lights, Lee tells Marcus to set off a bunch of fireworks away from the house as a diversion for the monsters. Arriving at the house with a shotgun in hand, Lee finds Evelyn hiding in the bathroom with their newborn son, and along with Evelyn makes his way to their improvised soundproofed basement. Lee leaves her there to rest to find the other kids and promises Evelyn he will protect them. She then falls back asleep, but soon wakes to discover that the barn basement is flooded with water from a broken pipe, and that one of the monsters is stalking her in it. Reagan, hurrying back to the farm, takes refuge atop a grain silo with her younger brother and lights a fire to alert their father of their whereabouts. However, they soon run out of lighter fluid and the fire dies out before they can attract Lee's attention. A hatch door then suddenly gives way and Marcus falls into the silo, and the sound of the door falling distracts the creature that was stalking Evelyn, and it targets Marcus and Reagan. Reagan, who has jumped in after Marcus, sinks into the corn and nearly suffocates. However, Marcus saves her before she becomes entrapped. Reagan's hearing aid reacts to the proximity of the creature by emitting a high-frequency sound that drives it away. The kids proceed to escape from the silo and reunite with their dad. The creature returns, however, which attacks and wounds Lee, while Marcus and Reagan hide in a pickup truck. After seeing his dad hurt, Marcus shouts impulsively, which attracts the creature to the truck. Due to its unpleasant sound, Reagan turns off her hearing aid for the first time, unaware of the fact that it could have potentially driven the creature away. Lee signs to Reagan that he loves her and always has loved her, before sacrificing himself by screaming to draw the creature away from his kids. Ugh. I'll get on that later. Reagan and Marcus roll the truck down a hill to escape and reunite with Evelyn and the baby back at the farmhouse. They then retreat into the house's basement when the creature returns. Reagan, who realizes the sound made by the implant distresses the monster, switches the device back on and places it on a nearby microphone, amplifying its feedback. Painfully disoriented, the creature exposes the flesh beneath its armored head, which, of course, Evelyn proceeds to shoot off, which kills it, blowing the top of the monster's head clean off. The family views a CCTV monitor which showing two more monsters, which is attracted by shotgun blast approaching the house. With their newly acquired knowledge of the creature's weakness, the members of the family arm themselves and they prepare to fight back against the two, with the film ending with Evelyn raising her shotgun, cocking it once more, and then the film cuts to black, leading into the sequel, which once again I cannot fucking wait to see. So how about this plot? Well, I love it. I think it is a very well thought out, very well conceived, very well executed movie. It's very original, as people do say, which it is. It's very original. It doesn't feel like it's okay. If it borrows any elements, it borrows elements from the best stuff, and it shapes them around to make it its own thing, which I do like. I love this movie's plot. I think it's. I like how unique it is, and I cannot say enough good things about it. I love this movie's plot. Again, despite the couple of issues that I do have with the film, it's a very, very, very solid movie all throughout. So with all that being said, let's get into the pros and cons of A Quiet Place. Number one is that this movie has a magnificent cast. A small cast. We, of course, have John Krasinski as Lee, Emily Blunt as Evelyn, Millicent Simmons as Reagan, Noah Jupe as Marcus, Cade Woodward as Bo, even though he has maybe, 4 minutes of screen time in the whole movie, if that. And then we have Leon Russum as the man in the woods. So this movie has a very, very small cast, but I feel like that's a good thing. Some people I have heard say they find a small cast to be boring, which I can somewhat understand, because sometimes you feel like, well, a small cast. When you have a small cast, you really have to have some talent behind it, because if you have a bunch of crappy actors, you're just watching a crappy movie with shitty characters. But if you do it well, a movie with a small cast can work amazingly well. Like, look at Stephen King's Misery, for example. That film has maybe also 5 main characters in the entire movie, 2 of which you see about 85% of the film. And in that case, the film works amazingly well with its small cast. This movie is another example of a small cast working well. You, of course, have John Krasinski as Lee, who is an engineer. I didn't know that he was an engineer until I did research for this movie before I started. And me and the missus said to each other, he's got to be an engineer. And of course, we're right. Krasinski does an absolutely phenomenal job. He conveys a lot with just his face, and also through sign language and body language, which I've always said I will give an actor or actress a lot of credit if they manage to give a good performance without saying much or saying anything at all. In this movie, they don't really talk that much. It has maybe 5 to 8 pages worth of spoken dialogue, if that. Excuse me. I think Emily Blunt has maybe one scene in the entire movie where she's actually using her voice. So this movie doesn't have that much spoken dialogue. A lot of it is conveyed through sign language, as well as body language and facial expressions. And Krasinski does a great job in this movie, especially in the facial expression department. There's a lot of moments where he's like he has this worried, fearful expression on his face that conveys so much. He's worried for his family. He's worried for himself. He's worried for his surroundings. Um, I really can't praise Krasinski's performance enough in this movie. I think he should have been nominated for best actor in the Oscars, which I don't know if he was. Um, let me take a look. No, he was not. He should have, because Krasinski does an absolutely phenomenal job as Lee. I just have one issue with this character, but I will get to that later. Emily Blunt does a phenomenal job as Evelyn. Like I said, there's only one scene where she speaks. Everything else she conveys in sign language. But her acting is absolutely phenomenal in this film. I think the best moment in the movie it's my favorite scene, and it's also, I think, her best scene in terms of acting is when she's giving birth. We're going to talk about the scene where she's giving birth a lot, but her body language and her facial expressions are phenomenal. The scene starts when she gets up from out of a chair, when she's just silently reflecting on her kids and just having a moment to herself. She gets up, she's gonna go back into the farm or something, do something. She then stops and he has this like pained expression on her face, and she looks down and we see that her water has broken. And then we see that worried, fearful look on her face as she rushes back down to the basement. And then when she steps on that nail, the look on her face is, I totally buy it. I highly doubt she actually did step on a nail for this movie, which if she did, A, that's a dick thing to do, but also B, that's what you call dedication to exploitation. Now, this is an exploitation movie. I just want to say that. The look on her face, in her body language, I totally buy that she actually did step on a nail, which is phenomenal to say about any actors who can convey that. Of course, anybody can convey that they're in pain, but I completely buy that she actually did step on a nail. And her facial expressions, like when a contraction is coming, when her face tenses up and she's trying so hard to hold in a scream or a groan of pain. So she just lets out a like she's trying so hard to hold in a sound of pain, but there's a couple times where she does lose a little bit, like she makes a little whimper sound. But overall, in that scene, I really think that's when Emily Blunt's acting shines the most, is when she's giving birth. So, and like I said, it's probably my favorite scene in the entire film. So Emily Blunt does a great job. And the rest of the characters, aside from Millicent Simmons, who plays Reagan, who actually is deaf in real life, there's not that much to say about them, aside from Millicent. Reagan, like I said earlier, I will give an actor or actress a lot of credit if they manage to do a good performance without saying with saying very little or without saying anything at all. And Millicent Simmons does an absolutely phenomenal job. Like I said, she actually is deaf. Krasinski said that he sought out a deaf actress on purpose for many reasons. Quote, I did not want a non-deaf actress pretending to be deaf, and most importantly, because a deaf actress would help my knowledge and my understanding of the situations tenfold of actually dealing with having a deaf daughter in this kind of situation. And I wanted someone who lives it and who could teach me about it on set, which I think is a very, very, it's both honorable and admirable, but it's also very, very smart and very genius. So like I said, she makes no vocalizations whatsoever in this movie. She conveys all of her dialogue through sign language. I don't actually know any sign language, but just bear with me. You know when she's frustrated. You know when she's upset. You know when she's fearful. She also does a great job of using body language, but especially her facial expressions. This isn't the type of movie that you can just throw on in the background as background noise. You actually have to watch it because a lot of the dialogue you can't actually hear. They do have subtitles for the sign language, thankfully, which they originally did not want to do. They just wanted to have them speak sign language with no subtitles, but have contextual hints. Like there's a hint of context to let you know what they're saying. But I ultimately do think that the inclusion of subtitles was a good thing because admittedly a lot of today's audiences aren't that smart. So the inclusion of subtitles I think was a good thing. So like I said, Millicent Simmons does an absolutely phenomenal job, and I hope she does have a good career before her. And the rest of the cast, like Leon Russum, he's in one scene. I'm pretty sure he's dead now. Oh, no, he's not. Never mind. And Noah Jupe as Marcus, he's all right. He's all right, I guess. He might be the weakest character in the film. Like, he has one scene where he speaks. Then there's another where he just says dad. He does have a good scared face. Like, I totally buy him as actually being scared. But other than that, he's not bad, but I wouldn't say he's amazing. I'm just saying he's the least best performance in the film, which isn't an insult. Don't get me wrong. So overall, this movie has a very good cast, and I totally buy every single character. I totally buy them as real people. So that's awesome. Pro number 2 is that this film is paced perfectly. It's a bit of a slower pace. That's a good thing. This is another example of a movie that has a slower pace that I actually do like it for. It's not Exorcist slow, that's for damn sure, right? But there's a couple moments where it has a bit of a quicker pace, but I wouldn't say that it's a cinematic pace. It overall is a generally very it's not a very slow pace, but it's a slower pace. But I buy it. I totally eat this up. It's kind of like unintentional but intentional world building. There's a lot of hints throughout the film of that you can gather bits of information around how these creatures came about and how this apocalypse has affected the world. And this movie, I just has a completely different subject, but I think this film is paced perfectly. It like I said, it has a slower pace, but it works. It makes the scares and the tension in the film all the more sweeter. So, and this I wouldn't really say this is a super rewatchable movie because of its pacing. Not that it's a bad thing. Don't get me wrong, but I don't really see myself rewatching this movie 10 times in a row. That's for damn sure. Not even you. So this movie is paced excellently. Pro number 3, like I said, is the tension in the film. This is some of the best tension and suspense that I've ever seen in my life. There's so many moments where you kind of like the characters, you yourself kind of feel nervous to move because of what possible noise that you may make, along with the characters too. And there's lots of moments where the tension is so thick that you're on the edge of your seat, completely glued to the screen. And that's the sign of a great movie, is if you don't want to move and you don't want to blink and you don't want to look away. And this movie's tension does that beautifully. That's another reason why I don't think this movie is very rewatchable, is because this movie is so tense. It's kind of draining. Well, not really draining, but it's not always pleasant to deal with. So I think that's another reason why this movie isn't super rewatchable. Again, it's not a real issue, but it's just something you should probably take note of. But this movie's tension is absolutely phenomenal. And this leads me into the scares, which are 1, 2, 3, 4. Pro number 4, the scares / cringe moments. There are some jump scares in this film, but I think they're very well executed jump scares. Because the movie is so quiet, the jump scares hit you like a freight train. It's not just like a mild startle. It's more like a jump 2 feet in the air and your heart beats at 1,000,000 miles a minute. One jump scare that they show in the trailer is when Reagan and Marcus are playing Monopoly, and Reagan accidentally knocks over a lamp, and it doesn't just shatter, it violently shatters, and it sounds like a freaking stick of dynamite going off. And it catches the floor on fire, yeah. So your heart's racing a mile a minute, and you see that the floor is on fire, and then you, along with the characters in the movie, like you freeze, and you wonder, did they hear it? Did they hear it? And as Krasinski slowly gets up and he looks out the window to see if there's any monsters, then there's a fucking raccoon that jumps out, and it kind of breaks the tension, and then it lifts the weight off their shoulders. Then they just go back to doing their thing. Then a couple minutes later, turns out there is a monster that eviscerates the asshole raccoons, which raccoons are assholes. Come on, let's be honest. And I say cringe moments because, yes, the scene where Evelyn's giving birth and she steps on that fucking nail. Every time I see this, I've seen this movie only 3 times. I saw it in theaters, saw it with my brother when I got it on DVD when it first came out, and I saw this with the missus last night. Every time I see this movie, I cringe and I jump a foot in the air, and my entire body tenses up. I actually have stepped on a nail myself before. It don't feel good. It's not just the image of her stepping on that nail. It's the goddamn sound effect of what they use. It's a very bony crunch. Like, I guarantee that nail had to have at least grazed one of her foot bones. And it looks like it hurts so fucking bad. And you totally buy, like I said, props to Emily Blunt for her acting in this scene. She actually looks like she is in genuine pain. And I can know from experience because I actually have stepped on a nail before. So that scene, it makes you cringe. The sound just makes chills fly up your spine, and it is so unpleasant to watch. So the scares and the cringe moments in this movie are absolutely phenomenal. Pro number 5 is the music score by Marco Beltrami, who did the score for the Scream movies, as well as Mimic, Resident Evil, and Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, just name a couple. Great job, for the most part. I will admit one of my, probably the most minor nitpick that I have for this movie is that I think this movie could have had a little less music. Specifically, it could have used less cheery music cues. The only one that I will accept is the one that plays at the very beginning of the movie before Bo gets killed. Because I understand why that one's there. It lulls the audience into a false sense of security before the kid gets killed, and it hits you like a freight train. So that's effective. But every other cheery music cue in the rest of the movie, I kind of feels a little unnecessary, because I just feel like this movie would have been a little more tense than it already is without all that music. The dark and brooding music, on the other hand, I absolutely love, and I absolutely do think that should be in the film, because it is awesome to listen to. It makes the tension in the film that much, some of the tension in the film that much sweeter when you see a monster and you know that's there, and you know the characters are in danger, and that loud brash music is just ringing in your ears, and it's just making you freak the fuck out, just like the characters are in the film. Thankfully, though, even though this movie has good music for the most part, they still don't use that much of it. It's never overly used. A lot of the movie all you hear is just the ambient sounds of the wilderness, like the wind rustling through the wind rustling through the trees and the leaves and the bushes, the snapping of twigs, the crunching of leaves, and the occasional chirping birds. Um, Other than that, it's just dead silence. And I love this movie for that. It was nominated for Best Sound, which I think it did actually win that award. Um, let's see. No, it was nominated for a Golden Globe Award for. No, hang on. Nominated for Best Sound at the 72nd BAFTA Awards, and as well as for Best Sound Editing at the 91st Academy Awards. I don't think it won anything for that. It should have, though, in my opinion. But this movie has a great music score. Pro number 6 is the monsters. Love the monsters in this movie. They're very threatening. They're very intimidating. Their design is somewhat original, but it does look somewhat similar to other monsters. It kind of looks like Venom a little bit, with its big toothy grin. It does look quite a bit like the Demogorgons from Stranger Things. Actually, a lot like the Demogorgons. But I still do feel like they're their own original thing. So production designer Jeffrey Beecroft was headed for the creature design along with Industrial Light and Magic, ILM. And they created the monsters, led by visual effects supervisor Scott Farrar. They wanted the creatures to look like they had evolved to no longer need eyes, which they absolutely do look like to be the case. And they also wanted to be somewhat humanoid in nature. Farrar said that the initial creature design showed them with rhino-like horns out of their faces. However, I think for the better, it was redesigned to be, again, kind of venomish, but also kind of Demogorgon-ish. Vanity Fair reported the team set about pulling different references for using prehistoric fish, like the Dunkleosteus, for example, because they had armor-plated heads, as well as big toothy grins. Black snakes and bats, particularly with their movement patterns. Inspiration was also drawn from bog people, which are cadavers that have been mummified in peat, which turns the skin black and gives it a sagging, leathery look. So I like the monster designs. Like I said, it does look a little similar to Venom, particularly 2018 Venom, because of its big toothy grin. You know, speaking of which, because I'm wearing a Venom shirt, and it looks a lot like the Demogorgon. But I don't know if they were intentionally like paying an homage to the Demogorgon or if it's just a big coincidence. I think it's just more of a coincidence because the Demogorgon looks like just a deformed humanoid-esque monster, and the monsters from A Quiet Place look like vaguely humanoid but more insectoid armored aliens. Like they look like aliens. To me, they're aliens. So the A Quiet Place monsters are definitely awesome, and they're very very intimidating, very threatening. And I would hate to fight these fuckers, despite one minor issue that I have that I'll get into with the cons. And the last pro that I have here, which is pro number 7, is these special effects. Admittedly, though, what kind of little of them there are, because while the monsters are badass, you don't really see that much of them, which some may see it as being a flaw. I personally don't. I kind of feel like they were taking an Aliens route, where in Aliens, you see a lot more of the xenomorphs, but that's only because there's more than one. You still don't see the xenomorphs that much in full. They're either obscured in shadow, or they're obscured in steam, or they're just the red the strobing lights and the combination of the red lights. You see them, but you only see bits and pieces of them. That's kind of what they do with the monsters here. You only see a clear, full shot of the monsters in this film 4, maybe 5 times, and they're really quick too. Oftentimes they're out of focus, or you see bits and pieces of them, like they're obscured behind trees, or they're hidden in shadow a lot, which, again, some people may say, I want to see more of the monsters, which I can understand, but I'm fine with it. And I still see enough of the monsters to get a good, to know exactly what their specific design is. So that's fine. But again, the special effects are absolutely outstanding, even though, again, there's not that much of them. The gore effects are all practical, at least from what I've seen. But the monsters, I believe, are all CG. I tried to look pretty hard to see if there are any shots where it was a guy in a suit. I'm pretty sure that's not the case because these monsters are so skinny. I'm pretty sure that all the shots where the monsters are on screen were done with CG, which I'm fine with because the CG looks very, very, very good. It looks real. And also, I think a lot of the reasons why they don't show the monster very much is because they wanted to try to hide the CG if it did potentially look fake, which I don't think it ever did. The only time it ever did look fake was when you clearly got a look inside of the monster's ears. That was clearly CG, but it still looked really good. It looked alien. It looked fleshy. It looked organic. It looked really fucking good. I don't know if there's any puppets or animatronics in the film. I'm pretty sure there wasn't. But overall, the special effects are absolutely phenomenal. Again, what little of them there are. So with all these good things to say about the film, do I have any problems? I do. I have a couple minor ones. Con number one is that I think this movie should have been rated R. Actually, no, I don't think. This movie should have been rated R. It's fine if you didn't want to make this an explicit R rating, but I still think if you made this an R, you could have made the scares a bit more impactful, and it could have made this. It could have made the tension a lot better. Could have made the kills a lot better. You just overall, you could have made the film a bit better if it was R rated. But that's just me. I like R rated films. Con number two, this movie's too short. This movie is only 90 minutes long. I so desperately wish that this movie was 2 hours. The sequel better be fucking longer than this. If it's not, I'm not gonna be happy. And again, I think this movie would have been better if it was a little longer and if it was R-rated. And the last problem that I have with the film, this is my big problem, the biggest problem of all. Why does Lee have to die? I think it's a total cop-out, a total spit in the face to have Lee die. I hate it's kind of like King Kong. Why does Kong have to die? Why does Lee have to die? Pisses me off to no end. And that's really all I have to, all the bad stuff I have to say. A Quiet Place is an absolutely phenomenal film. It's one of the best movies of 2018, and I highly, highly recommend it to anybody who is a sci-fi fan, who's a monster movie fan, who's a horror movie fan, or a fan of all the above. Which is why I am giving A Quiet Place a solid 9 out of 10. Phenomenal movie. I got some problems with it, but they're not too major. So push the comments down below. Let me know what you think. Hit the like button and hit the subscribe button. Share this video with your friends. And as always, go out and try your best to be quiet, but also carry a big fucking gun because you never know when you may need to use it. And I will see you guys in the next video.